So under project structure and setup, uh, the project is built using Django and Django RESTful framework. So here is a quick overview of its structure. So ideally we have common files as our directory as the apps, the settings, the urls dot python, the models dot python, the view dot python. So ideally the apps contains individual modules for functionality such as user, loans and repayment. The settings configures the development and testing, and also production environment with a separate .env or environment files for sensitive credentials. Then the urls.python typically maps endpoints to their respective views. The models .python defines the database schema, and also the views .python file implements the business logic for handling client request. So let's start with root directories and files. So the first one, it's dist.dist. So it's a likely distribution file created during packaging or deployment. So um, it contains some production ready files such as executable or uh, compiled assets. So for the vs code, um, this one it's a file created during packaging. Okay, not necessarily. It's a settings.json kind of file that its purpose is to store Visual Studio Code workspace specific settings. So it configures the editor preferences for all collaborators, like formatting, extensions, or debugging settings. Then we have the git ignore file, which is specifies files and directories to be ignored by the git version control. It prevents some sensitive or unnecessary files like the enviro file. We have like the not modules or the python cashier etc from being tracked by git. Then of course we have the readme .md. These are files for documentation for the project. So typically it prevents how can I say, it serves as a guide to developers or collaborators about the project setup, usage, and development process. Then we have the docker file. So the docker file here, its purpose is to contain instructions to create a docker image for the project. So it automates deployment by defining how the application is kind of contain the application is containerized for production or testing. Then we have the digital ocean yum file. So this one, it's a configuration. Its purpose is just for configuration for the deployment or deploying the app to digital ocean. Remember, I was using digital ocean as one of the deployment platform. It specifies settings like resources, environment, and deployment strategies for hosting. So I think those are the major files from the root. And of course we have the directories as indicated by the 4. So I think I'll be starting by the backend. So from the backend components, so we have the API, and the API directory defines the core API logic of the Django project, this project of course. So we have the Under it we have the migration directory, and its purpose is to track changes to the database schema. So it's kind of auto generated files. So it ensures the database changes, such like table fields etc are version controlled and applied consistently. So we have the init Python file, which indicates the folder is a Python package. So it allows the folder to be imported as a module. We have the admin Python file, which configures how the module appears in the Django admin interface. So it simplifies administration tasks like managing records. We have the apps Python file, which registers the app with the Django. So it provides metadata and allows the Django to recognize the app during runtime. So I was saying the deployment is still ongoing, so I've not completed everything. So we have another file like the middleware Python file. Um, it is a custom middleware to process requests and response globally. So it adds additional behavior like logging, authentication. We have things like logging, authentication, and maybe request modification. So we also have the models Python file, which defines the database structure as a Python classes. So it handles database interaction and enforces structure using Python ORM. So we have the permission file, which handles user access control. It implements customer rules to restrict or grant API access based on roles. So the other file, serial stamp Python file, it converts component data types like the models into JSON for API responses and vice versa. So its major influence it is to standardize data exchange between the front end and back end. Then of course we have the URL Python, which maps the URL to views or APIs, just as I said earlier. So its major influence is to define routing for accessing specific app features. Then lastly we have the views Python file, which handles the API logic for requests and responses. So it acts as the brain of the backend, connecting modules, serializers, and templates. So yep, maybe to the main uh, project directory file. So this is the main Django project folder containing the overall setting and configuration. So if we can start with the GitHub, so it is a directorate having another directorate. So the GitHub has another directorate in which called workflows, and in workflow now we get the ci.yml file. So the purpose of this file is for continuous integration configuration. So that is like for the GitHub actions. It automates the testing, building, or deployment processes. So we have the my app directorate, and my app directorate has several entities inside it. So it has a migration directorate inside it, which tracks changes in the app's database module. It has the more modern file, in which is a Python file that contains database modules for this sub app. It has the test, um, which contains unit tests for the sub app. Then the views, which handles specific business logic for the